oh, we'll be able to see the person and they'll look at our screen and we'll be able to advertise to them. We'll say, hey, Mitchell, you check out this cool model kit. And I'll say, very cool. And it'll say, Matt, this SIG won't explode, probably.
On this episode of ResiWeek, Jason Knott joins D-Tools, Alarm.com adds AI video analytics, and managing stress. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 378, Creating Boundaries. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Katye McGregor-Bennett. She's the president of K&B Communications. How you doing, Katye?
I'm doing fabulous. Good to see you. It's May. Finally.
It is May. That's right.
April was the longest month ever. That's why you get the big sigh.
It was annoyingly long. Then we have Mitchell Toolen. He is my producer here at AVNation. He's filling in for Seth, who had to take care of his kids.
Lame.
Hi, Mitchell. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I am the resident Florida man today, even though I'm in St. Louis. So that doesn't.
We should
really
still make the
track.
Florida man jokes, though.
I'll do it the best I can.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll
Yeah.
do it for Seth, because I always find some way to bring a Florida man thing into it. All right, let's kick it off with news that shook the AV world. No, but seriously, like this was really big news in the industry. This came out late last week. A really good friend of the show, Mr. Jason Knott, has joined D-Tools in their data solutions team. He's going to handle or be under the title of Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist, effective early July. Normally, I'd say if you don't know Jason, here's who Jason is. But if you were listening to this show, you know who Jason is. We love him. He's fantastic. And again, has been a great friend to not only myself, but to the industry, to this show, to literally everyone he talks to. He is the quintessential guy in AV that we all know and love. Katye, I know that you obviously have a great connection with Jason, but also with D-Tools, repping them through your company. What does this mean for D-Tools, and obviously for Jason, but more so for the collaboration of the two?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is new. This is really big news. And it's funny, as you came on, you're like, what ripples around the industry? And that was sort of how
It did,
how
though.
we kind of, I know. And it was funny because it was, and as we, we rep D-Tools, so we were working on the news a little bit in advance. And, it's always really hard to kind of keep a lid on news like this when it's just like, just wait for it. But I think the deal is that this is bigger than just a new position within D-Tools to be a data solutions architect. What this really is a story of evolution for D-Tools. At 25, they, over the last 5-10 years, have realized and have begun to find ways to leverage the huge amount of data that they have, and they've been able to provide insights and analytics to the industry on a number of things. But when you look at the work that CE Pro does in the deep dives and the CE Pro 100 analysis, the CI, the top, whatever it is on their side, the CE Pro has been in the business of analyzing data for a number of years. And so you kind of look at this now as Jason has been the guy that's been behind this, and he is really passionate about this. He's a numbers guy. And it's interesting if you think about that for a second. He's really a numbers guy, but he's also a words guy. He's an editor, and that, honestly, I mean, those two typically don't sit as a strength within the same person. So he's a bit of a unicorn in that regard. But I think, if you listen to the way that Tim and Jason talk about it, and Randy Stearns as well, there's such a need for data now to be utilized and processed more quickly, and for the industry at large to have more ready access to it so that we can make better decisions on the fly. based on fact and not based on assumptions. And so I think, it's a story about D-Tools evolution, but it also is a maturing of our industry. And it was kind of a long-winded way of getting there, but really this is the perfect illustration of that our industry is finally getting there. So now as you look at the work that they're going to do together, I see that we're potentially going to have the opportunity to show the outside world how big of an industry and how big of a business we really are, as opposed to the reference to the pieces of the pie that we typically, I'd like to see like the whole pie, not just our little piece of it, right? So, we'll get there by being able to provide more insights and analysis to the outside world that looks at us as an industry and says, yeah, this is much bigger than we've been giving credit to. So, I think that's really the big story. Jason moving over, and he is an awesome dude. If you heard me talking, I did a podcast with them last week. Jason was the guy that really gave me the confidence to do what I do now in communications. And I think you guys have heard me say something in the past. I'll pass it on. Jason was the one that I've always referred to that said content is ready when it's right. It is never ready when it's rushed. And I have applied that to almost every layer of my career since he taught me that like 15 plus years ago, right when he first came in. And we met, and it was just one of those things where it's like, he's got a lot more to share than just what you may have read from his words from the editor seat. And as he moves into the D-Tools role, I think it'll be really interesting to see where, sort of what gets lifted out of that pool of data and where, what we're all able to do with it.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Mitchell, you obviously deal with Jason on the kind of the back end from a scheduling and a story standpoint in prepping for this show. But one of the kind of interesting side parts of this is CE Pro was the last really standing news entity that kind of had a quote unquote founder still heavily involved. When Julie kind of retired, Jason, he had been there as long as the majority of us ever remember. So obviously now that Arlen's getting promoted, that's fantastic, but it is kind of an end of an era for CE Pro. Even though, they're not solely kind of owned by founders anymore, they're owned by Emerald. But what does this mean for CE Pro going forward?
That is an interesting question, and actually one that I was kind of lining up on in a different tangent, because when I was thinking of this article, I was like, what do I say? Jason is cool. How do I say this without sounding like he's dead? That's the thing I was most worried about. It always happens.
That is a challenge.
He's not dead yet.
Jason was such a cool guy. No, wait. He is. He's still. Yes, Jason is. He's got crazy insight into stuff and knows, what he's talking about. He's been a regular for our show for years. I don't think by the time that I was here editing and even managing ResiWeek, I never actually got to talk with Julie. Mm-hmm. So it was mostly just Jason. But he always has, no matter what you throw at him, he always has something to say about it and something that's insightful. Yeah. So I always like that he's passionate about this. And my tangent that was going off is that in a different vertical, the games journalism place, a site called Waypoint, part of Vice News, is shutting down soon. I believe they're ending in June. And so when I thought that games journalism is a different space, it's very personality driven, it's very social media driven. And right now I would say it's in a weird space of not uncertainty, and certainly places like that. And that's that's an entirely different can of worms, because Vice is doing its own thing. Yeah. But I don't want to see this as Jason jumping ship. I think CE Pro is going fine. I'm just, when I was looking at it, thinking, I do wonder where journalism and AV and that kind of situation is headed down. And to be honest, I'm not sure I have a full answer. I think we are kind of seeing a personality driven thing with this. And I mean, the AV industry is made up of people. Yeah. We like to talk about our products, but there are still people and teams behind things. And that is what I think is going to be ultimately what will push us forward. Because sometimes you get those stories about, here's a box, and you go, wow.
I love those stories.
Great.
They're my favorite. They're the ones I want to talk about the most.
I'll pick them up more.
Perfect. Thank you. But yeah, no, it is the whole industry is built up on personalities. And I don't want to say it always will be, but I think for the most part it will, just because boxes are boxes. That's what it is. So congratulations to Jason and D-Tools, as well as to Arlen and to CE Pro.
It's hard to sell a box without someone telling you why it's important.
Yeah, you need that personality.
Yeah. When I was looking at first off, I don't know what a data solutions architect and evangelist is. To be honest, I feel like that was being raised Nazarene. I should probably know more about what an evangelist actually means.
Just a little bit.
I think when I remember seeing D-Tools and they showed off system integrator, they showed off their cloud stuff at shows, and I would edit those stuff. I'd say, wow, it's really cool, but if I'm not outside of an integrator, if I was an integrator saying, wow, this can really streamline my project, I can look at stuff and know what to do and how manage all this stuff. So maybe having someone like Jason to say, here's why it's cool, here's what you can do with it, and like Katye said, here's the knowledge we have already to show you, here's what can work. And that so I think they made a great choice.
Well, I think both of you hit on really kind of one of the key points that we continually overlook is in the maturation of our industry, it will become data driven. Because if you go and talk to any other large industry or company, they have data points on everything. We deal with a couple franchise owners of one of the quick serve sandwich shops, and it doesn't matter which owner you talk to, they know how many pickles they push through every month. They can drill down and get all of that data so that they know that, store A in this part of town does really good business, these hours and these products. Store B in a different part of town has a completely different hourly, rate, not rate, but busyness. They're busy at different times. They sell the same menu, but different products in that menu sell all the time, to the point of my wife and I were in Toronto this past week, going to see Hamilton and just hanging out and doing some stuff. And we went into 2 different stores in 2 different like mall-ish things. Same brand, same stores, 2 completely different product sets. They had some staples that were the same, but completely different product. Because they're in 2 different areas of Toronto that serve 2 completely different markets. And when we started talking to one of the managers, they were able to tell us why. And AV is not yet there, but we're really, really close. All right, let's change topics for a second. If I can find my mouse, which has disappeared on one of my 3 screens. All right, there we go. This comes to us from CE Pro as well. Alarm.com acquires the AI video analytics firm Vintra. They've acquired substantially all of those assets for specifically the commercial market, which is going to help them advance and accelerate their deployment for their OpenEye platform and their Alarm.com platform from a video analytics side. Mitch, let me start with you on this one. Not that I get concerned when I see video analytics and AI put together, but AI gives me pause with literally any time it's mentioned for 2 reasons. One, typically they really mean machine learning, and I get nitpicky on that one. But 2, there's always a lot of privacy concerns when you start talking analytics and AI or machine learning, which is really what it is. Should we be concerned as these major platforms continue to quickly adopt analytics?
I don't know. This is, to me, it's not new necessarily. I mean, for a while, digital signage people have been talking about, and granted, I think most of it's theoretical, but always like, oh, we'll be able to see the person and they'll look at our screen and we'll be able to advertise to them. We'll say, hey, Mitchell, you check out this cool model kit. And I'll say, very cool. And it'll say, Matt, this SIG won't explode. Probably.
It's a SIG. It won't explode.
And so I kind of just see that just evolving the opposite way, where it's not looking at the person and wanting to advertise. It's just saying, here's the guy. And we've had face recognition stuff. I think AI has just kind of become a buzzword. It's always has been, but it's now just more of a, we have AI. AI is here it's been here. Machine learning, as you would
thank you.
be think. But we've got we have stuff that like it'll focus on the speaker when it's talking. It'll see someone who's wearing a mask and know that is a face. It's just that stuff being applied to there. It does feel sketchy in a privacy way. And I don't know exactly how to assuage those fears, except to say that you don't have to use it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Katie, I'm really glad Mitch brought up the privacy side, because that's always the biggest one for me. And what always gives me pause is if someone buys, like if one of my customers buys an Alexa online or any voice assistant or any smart camera, literally anything that's connected and monitors anything, no one is telling, they're signing a release, yes, but no one is telling them from the seller to the manufacturer what this does, where their data is going, who's going to have access to it. And yet within our industry, we go to keynotes and listen to lots of very smart people who continually tell us, you got to get your clients to sign off. I'm one of those people. You got to get, some legalese, protecting yourself, but also to explain to the client what they're getting into. What is our responsibility to explain the privacy issues that may arise from any products like this to customers when literally no one else is doing that, yet we seem to feel the need to handhold them through this?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, you're right, and it's interesting how frequently you could end a question with that point. And why are they the only ones that are doing this?
That's true,
right? I mean, RMR, remember that? We were the only ones that were not charging for service. I think, did we get on the other side of that finally?
Nope.
But nope. Wishful thinking, Katie. No, but I think that it part of it is because whether we are the only ones as an industry or not, we are some of the closest individuals to the heart of the home. The heart of the home, the heartbeat of the home, the financial, the data of the home, and the personal information that is connected to the home. I think it could definitely be argued that other service providers certainly have access, but I think I would argue that it's probably us and somebody else responsible for internet, and maybe some sort of streaming services that might have as much information typically as an integrator will have. So my take on it is that we probably we have a bit of a hyper focus on it because there are so many touch points across the home and those that occupy the home, and where we have personal information, not necessarily completely more than any other group, but I just get a sense that we're just a little bit more hyper focused on it. Okay, so now back to the other point, which is it scary or not? I think at this point, I think we're all sort of experiencing a different level of fear with regard to this topic of AI or machine learning. I think that AI has become the term du jour is becoming acceptable because machine learning, like, what is that, right? We've been watching movies for decades about AI and have movies with AI in the name of them. No movie has been ever released, I think, that says machine learning in it. I kind of say that jokingly, but I suspect that it's rather just the phrase that's winning, not necessarily the truth of the technology behind it. And AI is scary to a lot of people. I think for those of us in the industry, we're used to just sort of giving it up and, giving up so much of our personal information, and feeling pretty confident that we know at least how to secure it, or at least how much to release into the wild before we start to get nervous. But it's when we're talking about video and video analytics and machine learning behind it without human interaction, that, that does get concerning. I just feel as though we're at a stage where we've kind of crossed that line at this point where there's no going back. There really is no going back. And I think just, it comes down to the consumer to decide how much you're willing to expose It's going to sound weird. How much you're willing to expose yourself. I did not mean it that way. But how much you I know, because I'm on your show. So Mitch, you can either trim that out or not. It's up to you.
Thumbnail options.
But, I think that's the thing, is it's just how much are you willing to put out there for the benefit of technology that you enjoy and appreciate on a daily basis. And this to me is just one more of those layers. Yeah. Why is our industry the one that's left holding the bag of explaining it to people? I don't know, but I'm kind of glad that we're here. You know what I mean? Like, without another layer of precaution, things might kind of be speeding up a little bit faster than even all of us are more comfortable with. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. This news in and of itself doesn't freak me out. There's a bunch bigger things that freak me out.
Let's explore that.
Yeah. On the next episode.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, don't.
I think what I'm getting is read your EULAs.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm guilty. I know every time I see something that says that, I'm just like, especially the ones that force you to go to the bottom. I'm like, great. Now I get to scroll.
Scroll, baby, scroll. All right, let's hit our last story of the day. This comes to us from our residential systems and a good friend of the show, Mr. Henry Clifford. Managing stress. Henry goes through this article, which is great, like, pretty much everything he writes about how the last little bit has been a little stressful for him. He mentions that his company didn't necessarily hit their sales goals for Q1, which I'm glad someone finally put in print. Take that, read that one into that as much as you want. But he goes through a couple things that he does to try and eliminate stress, as far as exercise, adrenaline, talking, and finding a little moment of bliss. So, Katie, let me start with you on this one. I don't know, in my circle of just literally people I know, I don't think there is a more stressful group of people than small business owners. I know some people that run massive corporations and they're stressed, but not like small business owners. And I am 100% speaking for myself, likely speaking for you, likely speaking for every single one of my customers and friends who own a small business. We as a whole are so stinking stressed. What do we do, not just as an AV industry, but what do we do as small business owners to manage that? Not even minimize it necessarily, but is there anything we can do to manage that?
Boundaries. Hey, what
is that?
Yeah. So
can you define it? I've never heard that word before.
BOU. Boundaries. Nope.
No recall.
I mean, so I speak confidently as though I've got these heavily installed in my world, and I don't. I do in some areas, but I don't. I think boundaries is creating acceptable boundaries for yourself personally, for your family, and for your business. I think it needs to become more of a routine way of thinking, because and boundaries can change. There is nobody in my circle right now, personally or professionally, that I have not spoken to in the last month. There is not a single person that is not redlining, is not at an all-time level of overwhelmed, underappreciated, not sure what tomorrow's going to bring, kind of terrified about lifting my head from the pillow the next day. I just wish I could pull the sheets over my head and never emerge. And whether people are talking about it or not, it is real. And I think part of it is coming back from the pandemic and feeling as though, now we have to make up for 3 years of lost time. And now we've got all this other crap that's going on in the world and with the economy and so much uncertainty that it really has most of us upside down. If you're a small business owner, that is your livelihood, more so than being a manager of somebody else's business or being a participant at a leadership level of somebody else's business. It's at the end of the day, you're probably not worrying about HR or payroll when you're working for somebody else's company, and you're pretty confident that those things are set. For us, it's an everyday concern, and for us as small business owners. And I think that it's just the only way to start to take the power back. Remember that song? Is to create these boundaries, right? And so how much of your personal time are you willing to give up to manage your business in your off hours, right? So the things that overflow from Friday into potentially a Saturday, Sunday, how willing are you to give up Saturday and Sunday on the personal side to get a little bit ahead of that, right? Set those boundaries early so that I'm willing to give up, let's just say I personally am willing to give up half or maybe 2/3 of my Saturday. You're not touching my Sunday. I need that buffer between the end of the work week and the beginning of the next. And Saturday is not the day, because if I start my work week on Sunday for you, now you're making next week even longer for me, and you're probably going to have a pretty harsh Katye by Wednesday. So my boundaries are, if I overflow on Friday, I determine what I'm willing to give up on Saturday, and there is an impermeable wall around Sunday, for no other reason than I need that. I need that buffer, right? Has no other reason. Boundaries about the time, right? So you and I, we were rapping a little bit before we started recording about all these platforms, right? So is it Basecamp? Is it Slack? Is it, and there's so much stimuli for or input of data and information and funny jokes and quotes and commentary and the hottest story of the day. We can be getting hit from 20 different dings and alerts and platforms every day. Okay, so set a boundary around that. Set a boundary, right? Turn off your notifications after 6 p.m. I don't really think any news that hits Twitter in the AV industry after, let's just say, you should be eating dinner or spending time with your loved ones. Do you really need those notifications hitting you? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m.? No, that should be you time. Set those boundaries. If you like to work during those times, cool, that's fine. That's your boundary, right? But so just start taking a look at the things that are driving you absolutely batty, and those things that you control, start putting boundaries on them and adjust as necessary. But I think that's the thing that I've noticed is people are not managing or creating boundaries or managing them. Sure, yes, fine, I'll meet at 6 p.m. Sure, fine, I'll meet at 6 a.m. Sure, fine. As in, no, I can't, because I'm not going to be the best me at that hour. But you can have any of these other days and these times, and then really standing by that. And I think that's the more that we can kind of hold steady on those things, we'll get a little bit of sanity back. But it's tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Mitch, what is your best practice for dealing with the stress of having to work with me?
There is no cure for that. There's no boundaries.
How much? And we're out of time.
It is I agree with everything that Katye said. And then some, because boundaries is hard part of the big thing. I think I had to set them a while ago. Just to be like, okay, 6 o'clock, that is, you can ding me on Teams. I'm not going to get it. And if something isn't on fire, then I will get to you at 9 at the earliest. Because otherwise, what's the, especially I work remote. I work from home, and just editing. We have an office in St. Louis, but it is an hour's drive away and through Missouri drivers. So I don't take that option. But it is a hard thing to separate that, from work. It's very nice when you can say, here's my work stuff, and go home and do that. But I can't necessarily do that. I can walk out of this room and go to another one, but what you do need is that disconnect. You need to be able to just say, okay, I'm done here. I've done my stuff, and I can set it aside for now. And so that is, I agree with that 100%. For the most part, I find something to do. I just honestly, I build these dumb little model kits. You might see them in the background occasionally. And I find them very exciting because you can cut them and then you get a little robot at the end. What's not to love about that? Find something that you like to do. Don't make it too much of an addiction. I say that as much as I've spent way too much to think about on said model kits. And if you can find people that like to do that, talk to them. Otherwise, I don't, it is hard to be, we were talking about Jason Knott and how cool of a guy he is in the AV industry. But he's also a very dedicated father. He loves that his kids, they play lacrosse, they play hockey and stuff. He is more than just that AV guy. And sometimes we turn into just that person. Our job becomes our identity. And that, I think, can really kill someone, honestly, just their entirety. So find out what you are, and then, if you like your job, if you're a weirdo workaholic, then fine, that's your thing. But if you are feeling burnt out, find a way to disconnect, not like disassociate, but get out of that and get something.
Unplug from the matrix once or twice. Our good friend Bradford Ben, when he was doing a show for a little bit, and he started every show with, tell us who you are without telling us what you do.
Right.
And when he asked me that, it was like, well, that's a hard one. You didn't want to prep me for that? Thanks. Here, I thought we were friends. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Mitch, if people want to connect with you, learn more about AVNation or anything else that you're doing, where can they find that?
Oh, I'm going to go the Tim Albright way and say, don't find me. Instead, go to AVNation.tv. Take a look at all of our underwriters that make our shows like this happen. And also, if you think you can, how do I say this? If you think you can do a better job than me, I'd really like to see you try. Please contact me and my email if you want to be a guest for, say, ResiWeek or AVWeek or any of our many shows. We're always looking for new voices. We're always looking for new people to say what they are. And if you're in the industry and you have something to say, then we're happy to let you talk about it. So check us out, AVNation.tv.
Excellent. Thank you, my friend. Katie, if people want to connect with you, learn more about KMB Communications, where can they do that?
All over the sphere. So you'll find KMB Communications, KMB Com, all around the sphere. When you look for us, we are the ones with the mountain logo, or Katie McGregor-Bennett, or Katie McGregor, depending on which platform you're on. Seek and you shall find.
Excellent. There you go. All right. Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.